Just how close was Rudy Giuliani, the MAGA disgraced lawyer for Donald Trump? How close was he to being found in civil contempt today by Judge Liman in the federal court in New York for lying on a federal form about his assets and secreting his assets to avoid turning them over to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, those two election workers that were horribly defamed and doxxed the last election? I'm Michael Popok. You're on MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF. And no amount of what happened on Tuesday is going to pay off the $150 million that Rudy Giuliani owes or get him out of the problem he has today with Judge Liman in a new hearing that I'm going to cover right now here for the channel and Legal AF. Rudy was ordered to appear before Judge Liman in 500 Pearl Street in New York, the courthouse, because when Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, who were appointed and deputized by the judge to be their own receiver, to collect almost all of Rudy Giuliani's assets, his Yankee memorabilia, his paintings, his artworks, his 12 watches, his bank accounts, almost the suit off of his back, leaving him, as his lawyers tried to cry on the court's shoulder today and ask for mercy, leaving him penniless and homeless because he's about to lose not one apartment, but two apartments, one in New York and one in Florida. But today's hearing is because the judge back on October the 22nd gave Rudy Giuliani until the 29th of October to turn it all over. And they turned over none of it. In fact, when Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss and his lawyers, her lawyers got into the apartment in the Upper East Side of New York, boom, they opened the door. They said nothing was there. Everything had been moved away, apparently 4 weeks earlier, to a storage unit somewhere in Long Island or Long Island City in New York without court permission. Remember, there is a restraining order over all the assets there. And so the Judge Liman, told Rudy Giuliani, I'll see you Thursday in person. Come from Florida, come for wherever you are. I want you in my courtroom. And that hearing took an interesting turn. First of all, it turns out that Rudy Giuliani lied on a federal form related to a list of his assets. And when he, next to each of his assets, he wrote for the people with knowledge of the whereabouts of the assets are, he wrote none, that no one knows where his assets are, basically confessing that he was hiding assets. To which point Judge Liman said to Rudy Giuliani, who was very combative in court, and on the way in, I'll show you a clip about him in a minute, the judge said to Rudy Giuliani, that is farcical. I have another word for it. That's in contempt of court, to lie about the location of your assets on your form. And at that moment, Rudy turned and said out loud, because he likes to be his own lawyer, even though he had lawyers, he said, take my name off the form. And the judge says, you don't get to practice self-help here. It's too late. That form is done. That form is filed. You already lied on that form. Then they started talking about the assets. Now, Rudy Giuliani's lawyers and Rudy Giuliani himself out loud in court said they're being mean to him, that the lawyers are being mean to him, that he's being treated rudely, that it's political persecution. Tell that to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, who had to leave their homes, who were violently attacked by Donald Trump and his minions, who went after them when they were falsely accused of committing voter fraud back in Georgia in the Fulton County election count. Tell it to them. This will never give them their life back. They'll never collect the $150 million. I mean, at most, Rudy Giuliani has, if you add up his real property, his two apartments, and all this other assorted stuff, maybe $10 million. It's not nothing. I want Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss to have it. Now, it looked like Rudy was rubbing their nose in it during the election itself, because on election day, a 1980 Mercedes that used to be owned apparently by a famous star from the past, Lauren Bacall, she'd been in a relationship with Humphrey Bogart, if you're interested. That's part of the things he needed to turn over 7 days ago. Instead of turning it over on the 29th, on November the 5th, he was driving it. Literally, we have a picture of it. He was literally driving it to vote in Palm Beach County, in another apartment that he's likely to be forced to turn over to the same Judge Liman and over to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. The ball's on him. He once described it earlier in the week as a broken down old car. So he's driving a broken down old Mercedes that belongs to the creditors to vote. He wasn't told to do that. He was told to restrain his assets, to protect and preserve his assets. And the judge had it. In fact, on the Mercedes issue and all the other property, after they got through it all, the judge looked at the lawyers and Giuliani in the eye and said, look, enough is enough. There are creditors' rights laws in New York under New York state law that I am bound to enforce. It is the law. It's not my choice per se. I'm following the law. They're like, well, we want to wait. We have an appeal. I said, well, then you need to post a bond. If you want to stop the enforcement of a judgment, put up $150 million bond. And they said, well, we can't get a bond. Oh, then you're not going to get the stay of execution of a judgment. Turn over all your property. And when the judge said to the lawyers, when is the Mercedes going to be turned over? And the other items that were due over a week ago. And when the lawyers said, promptly, Your Honor, the judge said, I'm going to redefine that. How about Monday? Ordered. So ordered. Monday. Now, if Monday comes and goes and Rudy Giuliani doesn't get that car up here from Florida, I don't know if he's going to drive it or he's going to have it shipped or whatever. He doesn't get that up here and turn over everything else that's in that Long Island storage unit. He's going to jail. He's going to be found in contempt and go to jail. He just avoided contempt today. I predicted that Judge Liman was going to actually put him in the detention center now related to it, but the judge gave him a break, yet another break for one of these, MAGA supporters, but he's got till Monday. He's got a reprieve. The governor called and said, we're going to throw the switch on the electric chair, but it's going to be on Monday. Now, Rudy Giuliani came in all piss and vinegar, all combative. We have a clip of him going into the courthouse, and so you can see his mood that was expressed during the hearing where he can't stop talking, even though he has lawyers that would like him to stop talking. Let's look at the clip.
Mr. Mayor, do you have anything to say about why your belongings were not inside your apartment?
They were. My apartment was filled with belongings, and they just lied.
Are you saying that all of your valuables were there?
All the things that were appropriate were there. And the apartment was pretty full with things. So they're lying completely. Every room had furniture in it.
What about the Mercedes?
Let's keep walking, guys. Watch yourselves.
The Mercedes has never been in New York. It's always been in Florida. And it's there right now.
Sorry. I'm trying to get out of the way.
Every bit of property that they want is available if they're entitled to it. Now, the law says they're not entitled to a lot of it. For example, they want my grandfather's watch that's 150 years old. That's a bit of an heirloom. Usually you don't get those unless you're involved in a political persecution. In fact, having me here today is like a political persecution. The judge knew I couldn't come today. He's also scheduled a trial for right at the time of Donald Trump's inauguration. Gee, I wonder why he did that.
Can you call yourself worth?
Okay, so here's the rundown. He's got to turn over everything, including the grandfather's watch. He makes a big deal out of this 100-year-old watch from his grandfather, like I'm watching some scene from Pulp Fiction with Christopher Walken. The gold watch, and here it is. Turn it over. Turn it over. There's one out not to turn over the gold watch, and it doesn't apply in this particular circumstance. So that watch is going over, along with everything else. He either does it on Monday or he's going to be found in contempt and he's going to be thrown in jail by Judge Liman. And that's just the way it is. And he can talk about persecution and prosecution and everything else he wants, but that is the law in the state of New York, and he's nothing but a common deadbeat debtor at this point who has not paid his debts. And the next issue, there's another issue in front of Judge Liman, which is this apartment in Palm Beach, Florida, on the island of Palm Beach, right near Mar-a-Lago, that's worth $4 or $5 million. He says, of course, that he's a resident now of Florida and he has homestead protection, which is a ring fence, a protection around homes in Florida, which is why a lot of deadbeats and criminals go down to Florida and buy houses, because it's very hard to get their house away from them. So he's claiming that. It all depends on the timing of when he declared residency. And he's going to have a problem, I think, proving to Judge Liman that he declared residency at the right spot. So there's a hearing that's coming up, I think, next week, in which Judge Liman's going to rule once and for all whether the Palm Beach condo gets turned over or the excess value, because homestead is not unlimited. There's an unlimited value of it. So the excess may have to be turned over, which means he might have to sell the thing anyway. And we're back to being penniless and homeless, but who really cares about Rudy Giuliani? So Tuesday happened, and I'm sure in MAGA world and Giuliani's addled head, he was happy about Tuesday's results. Doesn't help him. He's not getting his 2 bar licenses that were suspended or revoked back. He's not getting his Georgia or Arizona indictment thrown out that soon. I don't think Arizona is going to get thrown out at all. And he's not going to get the $150 million that he owes wiped off the books. So this is the problem when you follow your fearless cult leader and he ends up getting reelected, but that doesn't necessarily help you on state issues, on civil issues. There's no pardonability for Donald Trump to wave a magic wand to wipe out a $150 million judgment that somebody has obtained against somebody else. That's not happening. These are the limits of the pardon power. We'll talk about it more on Legal AF and on the MeidasTouch Network. Thanks for being here. This is a community that's important. We built a durable network here and on Legal AF, a collaborative channel along with the MeidasTouch Network where we talk about the intersection of law and politics. Find us at Legal AF MTN for MeidasTouch Network and help us build that community so that, and this is the reason we built these two communities, these two channels in order to be here at this particular moment in time, regardless of what happened on Tuesday. So I'm Michael Popok and I'll continue to report right here on the MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF. In collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.